this afternoon to share some stories with you, and I have a special guest with me. This is my guinea pig, Mr. Biscuit. He is 3 years old and he's a bit grumpy as well. But the reason I've brought him along this afternoon is because I have some guinea pig stories. So I've got a lovely range of books that are traditional classic tales that are retold with the help of some guinea pig actors. You can buy them on Amazon or in bookstores if you're interested, but they are just something that really appeal to me because I love guinea pigs and I also love reading as well. So the one I'm going to share with you this afternoon is called Oliver Twist. It's originally written by Charles Dickens, and it's been retold by some guinea pigs who have dressed up as the characters. So here we go. So inside it shows you pictures of all the different guinea pigs that have taken part. They're all from a guinea pig rescue centre as well, and the proceeds of the books go towards fundraising for them, which is really nice. So here we go. Oliver Twist was born an orphan of the workhouse and fell into his place at once, a parish child, the humble half-starved drudge, to be cuffed and buffeted through the world, despised by all and pitied by none. "We name our foundlings in alphabetical order," said Mr. Bumble, the parish beadle. This was a T, Twist. And there he is. That's Mr. Bumble. He's the owner of the workhouse. Oliver's 8th birthday found him a pale, thin boy. Believing that meat made for a rebellious child, the workhouse had a policy of gradual starvation, issuing the children only 3 meals of thin gruel a day, with an onion twice a week and half a roll on Sundays. One evening, little Oliver, desperate with hunger and reckless with misery, rose from the table, basin and spoon in hand, and said, "Please, sir, I want some more." The next morning a bill was hung from the workhouse gate, offering a reward of £5 to anybody who would take Oliver Twist off the hands of the parish. Mr. Sowerberry, the undertaker, decided to take Oliver as his apprentice, but even he was surprised by the boy's appearance. "Dear me, he's very small," he said. "Why, he is rather small," replied Mr. Bumble, looking at Oliver as if it were his fault he wasn't bigger. "Well, come with me," said Mr. Sowerberry, leading the way to his funeral parlour. "You won't mind sleeping with the coffins, I suppose?" Due to his natural expression of melancholy, Oliver was soon accompanying Mr. Sowerberry to all manner of funerals. However, young Mr. Noah Claypole, who minded the undertaker's shop, was jealous when he saw the new boy being promoted so quickly. He taunted Oliver in the hope of making him cry, and then, when all else failed, he got rather personal. "Your mother was a regular right down bad 'un," said Noah, "and it's a great deal better that she died when she did." A minute ago, Oliver had looked the quiet, mild, dejected creature that harsh treatment had made him, but his spirit was roused at last. The cruel insult to his mother had set his blood on fire. Crimson with fury, he started up, overthrew the chair and table, seized Noah by the throat, shook him in the violence of his rage till his teeth chattered in his head, and collecting his whole force into one heavy blow, felled Noah to the ground. "Help, help," blubbered Noah. "Oliver's gone mad. He'll murder me. He's turned vicious." Mr. Sowerberry punished Oliver with a thorough drubbing, and then ordered him upstairs to his dismal bed. Left alone in the gloomy workshop of the undertaker, Oliver wept and wept, and resolved to run away. With the first ray of light, he tied up a few scraps of food in a handkerchief, unbarred the door, and set out for London. London, that great large place, nobody, not even Mr. Bumble, could ever find him there. On the way, Oliver met the strangest looking boy that he had ever seen. "Hello, my covey," said this strange young gentleman. "What's the row?" "I am very hungry and tired," Oliver replied. "I have walked a long way. I have been walking these 7 days." "7 days? Come, you want grub, and you shall have it." Among his intimate friends he was known as the Artful Dodger. The Artful Dodger led Oliver to a gloomy room in the dirtiest part of London, where Oliver encountered a very old man by the name of Fagin, whose villainous-looking face was obscured by a quantity of matted hair. Dressed in a greasy, tattered coat, Fagin was dividing his attention between a frying pan of sausages and a clothesline, over which were a great number of silk handkerchiefs. "We are very glad to see you, Oliver." "Very," said Fagin. Fagin craftily inducted young Oliver into the pickpocketing trade, and one morning sent him out to work with the Dodger. The boys walked along to Clerkenwell Green, where they saw an old gentleman reading at a bookstall. "A prime plant," observed the Dodger. The Dodger plunged his hand into the old gentleman's pocket, withdrew a handkerchief, and then ran away at full speed. Horrified, Oliver took to his heels as the gentleman turned sharp around. Seeing Oliver scudding away at such a rapid pace, the gentleman shouted, "Stop! Thief!" After a helter-skelter chase, Oliver was caught and sentenced to 3 months' hard labour until the old gentleman, whose name was Mr. Brownlow, persuaded the magistrate that Oliver was innocent. Exhausted, Oliver fell heavily to the floor in a fainting fit. His face was deadly white, and a cold tremble convulsed his whole frame. Taking pity on the boy, Mr. Brownlow took him to Pentonville. Weak and thin and pallid, Oliver awoke at last and looked anxiously around. Mr. Brownlow tended Oliver with kindness and solicitude until his fever was quite past, and then, requiring some books to be returned, sent the young boy out on an errand. Dressed in a new suit and with a £5 note buttoned into his jacket pocket, Oliver left the house with the bundle of books. Accidentally turning down a street which was not in his way, he was claimed by Nancy and Bill Sykes, associates of Fagin. Darkness had set in. It was a low neighbourhood. No help was near. Resistance was useless. Fagin kept Oliver locked up and alone for many days, until one morning the Dodger asked Oliver to apply himself to Japan in his trotter cases. In plain English, that meant cleaning his boots. As Oliver worked, the Dodger tried to persuade him to take up the trade again. "Why don't you put yourself under Fagin, Oliver?" the Dodger said. "If you don't take handkerchiefs, some other cove will." "You've been brought up bad," said the Dodger, surveying his boot with much satisfaction. "Fagin will make something of you, though." The Dodger was right. Fagin had a plan for Oliver. He gave the boy to Bill Sykes, who was in the housebreaking business, and required a boy just Oliver's size for a crack in the far-off village of Chertsey. When they reached the house, Oliver was shoved through a small lattice window and instructed to unbolt the street door. But then there was a flash, a loud noise, a smoke, and he staggered back. "Damnation!" cried Sykes. "They've hit him." Realising that the game was up, Sykes abandoned the wounded boy and made good his escape. Fortunately, Oliver was rescued by the kindly Mr. Brownlow and taken to the countryside, where he grew stout and healthy and learned to read better and to write. Morning after morning, Oliver scoured the country for flowers and brought home the fairest that blossomed. One day, Oliver went into a nearby village to deliver a letter. Crossing the inn-yard, he accidentally stumbled into a tall man wrapped up in a cloak whose name was Monks. Monks advanced towards Oliver, glaring at the boy with his large dark eyes. Even though to Oliver he was a total stranger, he seemed to know the boy. "Curses on your head and black death on your heart, you imp! What are you doing here?" The encounter did not dwell in Oliver's recollection for long, however, for he was labouring hard at his education. One beautiful evening, Oliver sat at his desk and began poring over his books, but the day being uncommonly sultry, he gradually fell asleep. As he slept, Oliver knew perfectly well that he was in his own little room, but suddenly the scene changed, and he thought with a glow of terror that he was back in Fagin's lair. He awoke, and good God! There at the window, there stood Fagin, and beside him, Monks. Back in the city, meanwhile, Nancy had a sudden change of heart. Wanting to help Oliver, she met Mr. Brownlow in secret upon London Bridge and told him all about the plan Fagin and Monks had hatched. Monks struck a bargain with Fagin, Nancy said. That Fagin was to have money for making Oliver a criminal. Monks wanted the boy hanged for a capital felony, for he said that he was Oliver's brother and he wanted their father's inheritance all for himself. "His brother?" exclaimed Mr. Brownlow, clasping his hands. "Those were his words," said Nancy, "but it is growing late and I must go back, because among all the desperate men I have told you of, there is one that I can't leave, Bill Sykes." But Fagin found out that Nancy had blabbed and made Sykes so angry that he murdered poor Nancy. Of all the bad deeds that had been committed, that was the worst. Of all the horrors, that was the most cruel. Fortunately, however, Mr. Brownlow apprehended Monks and made him confess his plot against Oliver. "I swore," said Monks, "that I would hunt him down and bring him, if I could, to the very gallows foot. Oliver came in my way at last. I began well, and but for a babbling drab, I would have finished as I began. I would. Fagin and Sykes both hanged for their crimes. What little remains can be told in few and simple words. Oliver came into his rightful inheritance, and Mr. Brownlow adopted the young boy as his own son, watching with pride as Oliver showed the thriving seeds of all he could wish him to become. Oliver's warm and earnest heart was perfectly happy at last. And that's the end of our story. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're all keeping well and safe and staying indoors and getting out when you can, and we hope to see you really, really soon. Take care.